Welcome into another episode of Betting the Pitch. I am your host, the real underscore G Warner on Twitter. Thank you if you're on StreamYard or on Twitter watching me live. I appreciate it. If you are not, I appreciate you also. If you're on Apple Podcasts or on Spotify, please leave a 5-star review, follow on there if you can. That'd be awesome. As I switch to the better microphone, of course, because that doesn't seem to default on. And if you're watching on YouTube, please hit subscribe. I got 1 million followers left to go on there before I can start making any money, but might as well start the chase now. Today we're going to go through the Champions League. Similar to last week, was a perfect midweek for me. Champions League was really good to me, so I'm going to try my best to keep that going. And I feel like giving Champions League its own episode to really discuss what's coming through was the best idea possible. All lines quoted in this podcast are courtesy of betonline.ag, my favorite place to get my bets down early. Reduced juice is offered almost every game you want to bet right up until game time. Please follow the link found in the podcast description to fund your account and use the promo code GW50 to receive a 50% match bonus up to $1,000. So now you got some extra money in your pocket. Let's go make some money. I'm going to pull up if my internet was working on my other computer, which it's currently not. So I guess we're just doing it all in one. First matches are Porto Inter and Man City and RB Leipzig. I'm going to scroll over to those lines now. In a little bit of a rush today, but nobody will know it. So we'll start with Manchester City Leipzig. That's the first rotation number out there. Current aggregate score line, Man City took a 1-0 lead on the road in Germany, in East Germany, and Leipzig came back with a pretty dominant second half after getting dominated in the first, and got a really important draw. Probably not enough for RB Leipzig to go through, or at least to be more likely to go through, but a draw was not so bad. Losing at home would have been a really tough start for them. And, it's a pretty good situation for Leipzig to go on the road, knowing that a draw will take them an extra time, and a winner in regulation puts them through into the next round. Would be a historic win for a very unpopular Bundesliga side. But to get to the actual number on this one, currently Manchester City are a 1.5 goal favorite at home with a little bit more of the juice. Over under is 3, juice slightly to the under. So what do you think is going to happen in this matchup? I think what are the strategies that are going to be in place? Man City changed their strategy for nobody, unless they're in some sort of weird Pep roulette, as they call his fantasy Premier League lineups, and why people are scared of taking Man City assets is because you never really know what Pep's thinking. In this case, I think you know exactly what they're thinking. They're at home. They're very confident at home and should be after really dominating in English Premier League a lot because of their home results for the last few years. I will say, though, in tracking this number, it has jumped from a 1.25 that I was tracking last week. So it's moved up a little bit. Some Man City money has hit already. I'm not sure that's going to be the end of it. And I got to say, I think Leipzig can be a little bit of a nuisance here to Man City. I don't think this is going to be as easy as the odds certainly suggest it will be. I will cover some two advanced numbers as well. But just seeing that, so Leipzig's problem, I think, in general, is that they are not the same team away from home that they are at home. You see it in the Bundesliga, a much weaker league, and certainly they're not playing a lot of teams of Man City's caliber because there really aren't any in the rest of the world. Bayern Munich is probably the closest thing, is definitely the closest thing in the Bundesliga, having 10 straight Meisterschales. But ultimately, I think that this is a big step up in class for RB Leipzig, and on the road, they're probably not in great shape to go through here. But there's still a big difference between going through and covering 1.5. So when you look at RB Leipzig, I think you got to think about how do they stay within a goal, and probably what they try to do is a normal path that they usually take is they like to dominate the central parts of the pitch, and they like to spring counterattacks really quickly and use their pace. I don't know necessarily their front lines as fast as it has been in the past. We still haven't seen a lot from Christopher Nkunku, who's been out with injury really since the World Cup. Was a top scorer and was incredible and has really good history in this Champions League event as well. But I'm not sure how much we can rely upon him. I imagine if he's good to go, he starts, and he's probably the best chance that Leipzig have to score, but that's still a little bit concerning. And On the bright side, though, Leipzig are going to be in position to counterattack as much as they really want to. Now, they scored a goal off a set piece on a corner kick in the first round, the first leg. I think that's probably a low. I mean, we know it's a low XG expected goals event, so it's probably not expected to do more of that. But they should be camped pretty far back against a Man City team that will be just on top of them the whole time. Leipzig will be struggling, gasping for air, trying their best to hang in this match. I think they can do it because they really just need one goal, I think, to cover the spread. I don't think that Man City get 3 here, which also I think points me to the under 3. Though I do worry that if Leipzig gets that first goal, Man City goes all out, and then we see what happens. Another concern for me in playing unders in this kind of round or this leg is that, as we saw last week, I mean, if your team is losing and looks like they're going out, the goalkeeper's going up. Who knows if he's really trying to get back? And I mean, of course, they always want to protect their net because they're graded on how many goals they concede. But in a tie, a knockout tie, a one-off, since the first leg had already been played, there might be the good chance that there is a empty net type of goal like you'd see in hockey across the world. And that I've been on the wrong side of those, and they are absolutely brutal. 2 of them come to mind immediately, both of them in the Bundesliga, actually. But one was a Sport Club Freiburg goal at the end of last season against Leverkusen, I think, when they were trying to push for a higher spot in the table. Might have been 2 seasons ago. Another one was Augsburg against Leverkusen, I think, as well. So not good with that team, ultimately. To now, I guess, transition a little bit to the, not transition, but to stay with this game, but to go to the 2 advanced numbers. So while I pull this up, that's Europa League. Great. Okay. Leipzig. So Leipzig was as high as 4-1 and actually got higher than that until kickoff. Got all the way up to 4.5-1 with Manchester City minus 650. So like 1 to 6.5 to get through. Current number has not changed too much, despite Leipzig doing really well to get a draw at home. They're not getting much chance, and really chances haven't improved too much. They're only 4-1 odds to get through. Man City 1 to 6. I feel like Leipzig got a pretty good result at home, and that should be a little bit smaller of a number. But I think that's probably a reflection of where this line will probably end up heading and what people are expecting out of Leipzig and their chances. I do think I give them a little bit bigger of a chance to get through here than the market does. And I certainly give them a chance to hang around with Man City. I do also say, and something I always think about, when extra time is on the horizon, it's a really nice place to be on an under or an underdog, because the last few minutes, they're not a lot of all-out attacking, because teams are worried. They're not in a cup tie in their countries. They're more likely to just push forward and try to score and not have to play an extra game or a replay, extra time, all that sort of stuff. In this competition in Champions League, they are going for it and trying to win. And I think that that's a really good situation for an underdog and an under if you're trying to avoid goals for the last 10 minutes, where a lot of times those are where most of the goals are scored across the world. Now I'll move to, and of course, ultimate best bets coming into show, but want to get through as quickly as possible. Move now to Football Club Porto from Portugal, and they are hosting Inter Milan. That one on aggregate, I believe, is 1-0. Where the heck did my change? There it is. Okay. Yes. Porto lost 1-0 on the road at Inter. I did play under in that one, so that was pretty nice. I don't know that I really believed in Inter and their goal that they were scoring or scored. And then they went and played Friday, which Serie A does a great job of scheduling to keep their teams as fresh as possible for Champions League. But Inter lost to Spezia, I think it was Spezia. Really, really bad loss, to say the least. Penalties galore, and just a really, really sad experience for Inter, who really haven't been on it this year, I must say. Porto is currently a pick'em with all the juice right now. Over under is 2.5, juice to the under pretty heavily, very heavily. Might be falling down to 2.25. Since I last looked at these numbers, I don't know if this is a response to how poor Inter looked in their last Serie A match, but Porto has taken a lot of money to climb to now offer odds to Inter Milan, who were I think it was minus 116 Inter were, and now it's plus 102. So that has been a quick turnaround in juice. Over under has dropped from 2.5 minus 115 to 2.5 minus 122, and I don't really see a reason to abandon that. I feel like goals are probably not going to be very likely in this matchup, and I think it's going to be really tight. The nice part for Inter Milan as a road underdog here, and I think I would be more interested if they climb to a quarter of a goal, is that they get a Porto side who want to defend. and are going to give Inter a lot of chances to score. But then at a certain point, Porto, if they haven't tied it up, they're going to have to, or taking a lead on aggregate, they're going to have to come out and start trying to score more. And that's going to leave Inter the channels that they need. Inter are not a great team, I don't think, but they score too many goals to be denied. And I think when they're up against a team that doesn't play like the inferior side to them, which Porto I think will initially, but won't be able to later in the match, that's when Inter becomes very valuable and I think very interesting to me as well. I lean certainly to Inter at Pick'em right now, getting odds. I didn't really expect to see that number, despite having 1-0 lead on aggregate. I don't love a situation where if they are down by a goal that they don't really attack late in the match because they are focused on extra time, as I was just talking about. But I do think that that's a pretty low probability event. I think Inter are tough to trust, certainly, but coming off a loss will be very motivated. I think you could certainly point to that their eyes were more on this competition, considering how far behind Napoli they are in Serie A anyway. The Portuguese side, so I don't love being against them, especially with big clubs as underdogs. The Portuguese sides do really well in this competition. And so I think for right now, my strongest lean in this matchup is the under 2.5. I don't see a lot of goals in this one. I do think if Porto score the first one, they go back into a defensive shell. And that really works for the under, because also I'm not really sure when they'll score. And after watching Milan and the way they played Tottenham Hotspur, even up a man, playing really defensively, trying to hold on just to get through on aggregate because they had a lead, it worked for them and it makes sense. But I don't necessarily think Inter is going to play that conservatively, but that does speak a little bit to how Italian sides, I think, want to play and how much they value the finances in this competition because they are struggling in domestic leagues in Italy. For two advanced numbers, go back and try to find that one. It was so easy the last time. So actually have not moved since I last tracked them. Started as high as, or started as low as Inter Milan, a minus 170 favorite. First time I saw it. Porto plus 140, $10, brings you 14. Got as high, dropped a little, then got as high as Inter Milan minus 185. And that was, I think, before the match kicked off. Then they win at home. They jump to minus 350 to go through. Porto at plus 260. $10 gets you 26. 100 gives you 260. I think Porto would be a big shock to get through. I think it's unfortunately, I feel like at Pick'em, there's not enough necessarily for me just yet to back Inter. But if the money keeps coming in on Porto, being that Inter didn't have a great showing on Friday, I don't think this is necessarily an injury or concern of that nature. But I'm pretty interested, and I don't see a lot of goals in this one. I do think that if Porto go behind, then there's a good chance that this line gets, or that there's a lot of goals in this matchup. But with that said, I think Inter will probably play a little bit more pragmatically and just try to defend if they have a 2-0 or a two goal lead on aggregate. That would still keep your under in play. So very interested in that under 2.5. And we'll see if Inter end up moving. I feel like I doubt it. Money will more likely come in on Inter than it will on Porto tomorrow, barring some crazy injury thing or lineup faux pas by Simone Inzaghi. But until then, I'm looking at Inter and seeing what happens with the money there. Now moving to Wednesday, we have Napoli hosting Eintracht Frankfurt as the first line. And actually no advanced numbers up, but I guess that's because of the lopsided nature of these two matches. So currently Napoli a minus 1.25 goal favorite. All the juice on Eintracht Frankfurt right now. Over unders 2.75 juiced to the over. I think where I sit with Napoli is they're the best team in Europe. Maybe not pound for pound, but certainly you can't argue with the results. Since I initially tracked this line, it's moved a little bit where Frankfurt have jumped from a 1-goal underdog to 1.25, and taken a lot of juice on top of that to make that make sense. Over under has jumped from 2.5, though, is pretty much always pointing at 2.75, which it is now. And like I said, don't have a too advanced number to discuss, but it was pretty high last time I looked. Let's see if I can even find it. Napoli I don't even know if I've seen one actually since that first 2-0 victory away for Napoli. And unfortunately, also one thing that went along with that is the suspension of Randal Colomwani, who's the best scorer for Eintracht Frankfurt by far. He's going to be missed. And unfortunately, that really impairs the Eintracht Frankfurt offense. With that said, they're down 2-0 on aggregate. They're going to need to come out and play aggressively. That's not their style. They want to counterattack. So I think that Eintracht Frankfurt are going to be, I mean, there probably is still a big crowd that's going to go on the road and support them. It's part of why they got to this competition, winning the Europa League last season. I found this on the web. Thank you, Siri. But ultimately, I think I just don't know that I can back Eintracht Frankfurt. Of course, they lose by a goal, they're going home. They draw, they're going home. There's a lot of good things where that +1.25 makes a little bit of a difference. But I think as we saw in the last round with Bruges trying to cover behind, things can get really ugly when you're pushing forward and playing a way that you don't want to. I think Eintracht tried to probably stay in their lane and stay the way they want to and try to get an early goal and then keep playing the way that goes. But the longer and longer they go without taking a 1-goal advantage, I think the more aggressive they have to get. Napoli with Osimhen and Kvaratskhelia are two of the scariest upfront players in all of Europe. I don't know how long they're going to stay at Napoli, but they're there for the rest of the season. Looks like the Scudetto is theirs, and I feel like they're going for more silverware in this competition. Over under 2.75 makes me lean a little bit to the under, though. I feel like Eintracht Frankfurt, I mean, I'm not really sure about their game plan. Knowing Oliver Glasner, the way that I've watched him for years and years at Wolfsburg and then now at Eintracht Frankfurt, is a very good chance that they play very conservatively and don't come out right away. But every second that goes by and they haven't gotten a goal back or equalized, they're going to push out further and leave themselves really just, they're going to put themselves to the Napoli sword at some point. Next we'll go Real Madrid, Liverpool. It seems like both the good matches are on Tuesday. But Real Madrid currently a quarter goal favorite right now on a 5-2 aggregate lead, despite falling behind 2-0. Real Madrid, a quarter goal favorite right now, even money. So all the juice on Liverpool as we speak. Over under is 3, slightly juiced to the over right now. And that's flip-flopped a little bit, but hasn't moved too much. 5-2, Liverpool's got to come out swinging. Pretty disappointing performance this weekend against Bournemouth, taking a loss. Mo Salah missing a penalty, like a lot of bad things happening. It's been a very inconsistent year. It's really hard to predict what Liverpool will do at any point. Real Madrid with a good performance this weekend against Espanyol, but Espanyol is one of the worst teams in La Liga. I'm not sure how much to take from that. I did lose some money betting against Real Madrid, but I've been making plenty going against them just almost blindly lately. This is a weird setup because Liverpool's defense has been really like a bad sign. It's not good for a long time this year. And they're not going to care about defending at all because they need 3 goals or a 3-goal victory at minimum. It seems like too big of a road to hoe, but you never know. Real Madrid certainly haven't looked great themselves. I do think that Real Madrid will be able to take advantage of Liverpool overextending themselves, though Liverpool overextension is really just the way they've played this whole season. So I'm not really even sure if it's that much of an overextension at this point. Over under of 3. I mean, Liverpool need 3 goals themselves just to get back into this tie. I feel like that is normally would be a stone cold under for me, especially getting the push on 3. But I don't know necessarily that that's something I want to deal with, considering how many goals are needed from Liverpool. And every time they're pushing for a goal, as I've said a lot in this podcast, the bigger the chances of their defense conceding. I think Real Madrid are in good position to sit back, counterattack, and really light Liverpool up. I think it could get really ugly in that direction. I don't know that the pride of Liverpool will have them defending. I think it will be having them trying to go for this trophy because it looks like the most likely one that's out there available to them. I'm a little bit interested in Liverpool as a quarter goal underdog because even if they're up a goal, Real Madrid are still going to be defending and just kicking the ball down the pitch. That's probably going to be a hard one for me to avoid, I gotta say, and probably looks like the kind of the best option of all in this one. I don't necessarily know that I love the idea, and so this was -110 both ways, and it's moved, and Liverpool's taken a fair amount of money. I actually had it down wrong on my notes, or I was reading it wrong, and so it's, I mean, nice to see that Liverpool it's a side I'm sort of interested in backing, and they're taking a little bit of money at Bet Online, but I think it's going to take me a little bit of convincing to really be interested in playing that side. So I don't think I have a promo code today. I do want to plug my I guess while I'm doing it, I would like to plug my Patreon, as I am putting out nightly college basketball stuff, as we have the brackets been released yesterday. We have the NCAA tournament starting Tuesday night, but technically fully on Thursday. Brackets need to be in by probably noon Eastern time. I'm getting you ready. I put out an overall look at the entire bracket last night. I'm going to go region by region and get those out before the week gets too deep. I'm trying to get a couple done tonight and a couple done tomorrow. We'll see about exactly when those are out there, but I'll shout them out or put them out there. And it's a much more affordable rate than anything you've been seeing on pregame. $20 a month compared to my packages that sometimes go out for $25 a day. So think about that. That's a good way to get in there. And I think my plan is really to go beyond this NCAA tournament week, is to start recording every night and talking about my leans for all the sports I'm looking at, and just trying to get my thoughts out there in a more informal way. People can play around, interact, give me some feedback or thoughts or ways that you'd like me to talk about it a little differently, as these other podcasts are kind of pretty structured and kind of go the way that they've been going for a couple of years now. But anyway, that's there. Patreon.com. Find me on there, _G Warner, same name. Not my favorite handle, but I got it. I've had it for a while, so I'm using it. Patreon.com _G Warner. Patreon.com/_G Warner. Anyway, so now I'm going to go into the ultimate best bet portion of the show. Also get the Instagram camera ready. If I could somehow do that, that would be really nice instead of doing it live. But here we go. Phones are just doomed at this point. Okay, so we'll start from the top. So this is betting the pitch number 177, ultimate best bet time. I'm the _G Warner on Twitter and Instagram and Patreon, and wherever you could find me. I'm trying to use that handle, even though it's not my favorite. For my ultimate best bet for this Champions League episode, on Tuesday, I'm putting out the Inter Milan under 2.5 goals. And on Wednesday, Liverpool getting 1/4 of a goal from Real Madrid. My ultimate best bet for this episode will be the FC Porto Inter Milan under 2.5. We saw 1-0 in the first leg, and I expect that Porto is still going to play a defensive brand of football, despite being at home and despite needing a goal to equal up the aggregate score. Inter haven't really looked great, had a really poor showing on Friday. I expect they're going to go into this match and looking to counterattack. It's been the way that they've been so successful for years. I don't see a way to 3 goals very easily here. So I think this one stays really tight, and under 2.5 will get you done. And that'll do it for this episode of Betting the Pitch. Thanks, of course, everyone, for the support. As always, stay tuned for a Patreon episode tonight. Also, plenty of stuff going out through pregame and their Dream Preview Network. Got a best bet that I just recorded for them as well. I'm going to get out of here, but good seeing everybody, I guess, or whatever. You're seeing me after I record it, but whatever. Thanks for joining, of course, and we'll talk soon.